warm welcome to a new video here on my channel. Today I present to you the story, Luca the Worldjumper Part 7. I hope you like it. If you like it, leave a like and a comment in the comment section, and I hope you will enjoy the story. And then let us begin directly with the story and not beat around the bush any longer.
Man, oh man, that is really one spectacular chase. But I think I have to intervene. I still need that guy. It'll be interesting to find out why people are sending assassins after him. And I should take my shield, if you can call it a shield. Well, a metal plate of that thickness should stop regular projectiles. This will be risky, but screw it. Luca thinks as she teleports back, hefts the roughly 10-centimeter thick metal door and uses it as a shield. In the next moment she teleports back again and sees the chase has already turned the corner and she can't see the car. A few seconds later she spots the car again in the distance leaving the small town. One thought is enough. Luca appears 50 meters above the road, roughly positioned over the moving car. In the next instant she is standing on the car's trunk, silently grateful to her ability that she can ignore, bend, and adapt the world's laws so her momentum matches the car's and she doesn't simply drop straight down or smash into the planet at supersonic speed. The planet would still be moving even if she teleported a few kilometers away. Luca isn't entirely sure at what distance the planet would instantly kill her if her power didn't adapt her motion to the Earth's movement, but she's not keen to find out. In this case she slips before she can get a secure foothold and has to teleport back up again before she hits the ground, because at that speed it would be guaranteed lethal. When Luca lands again on the trunk the first bullets start to rain down on her. Thank God I took my shield, but that was still close. Well, I'll handle this now. Luca thinks as she smashes the rear window of the car and grabs the startled man at the wheel. She knows this is a terrible moment to try to explain anything, so she simply hopes it works and that he doesn't arrive only halfway. I'm here to help you, Luca says, thinking that she's never tried to keep someone alive through a teleport before. In the many times she's teleported other people, the intention was always to get them somewhere else as quickly as possible. Up to this point it usually didn't matter whether they arrived whole, half, or were resisting, the goal was simply that they no longer bothered her. In this case, half an arrival would be catastrophic, a decapitated person does not help. Luca concentrates and teleports with him, but without the thick metal door she had used as cover. When Luca and the scientist vanish with a pop, the air ripples where they were standing and the metal plate drops back down unsupported. Luca is glad she'd been carrying the metal plate like a backpack, because she needed both hands for the maneuver in order not to fall or be crushed. Teleporting with someone and not injuring them is strange. It's not the instantaneous point A to point B teleport she's used to. It feels more like a tunnel, a wormhole or portal that explicitly sends two individuals through. Whether this is her power on autopilot or the result of her strong will and desire to take the other whole, Luca can't say. She can only report that the teleport takes about a heartbeat longer than normal, and then the whole world turns as if she's in a really weird drug trip, albeit a very brief one that ends after maybe 3 seconds and leaves her gagging. Oh man, I didn't think it would be this exhausting to transport someone intact. Maybe it's because you moved so much. Luca groans as she empties her stomach onto the street. When she pulls her helmet back on she's relieved she did it in time and didn't puke into it. But when she turns to the man he's more or less out of his mind. Atlas, can you check whether this guy is still alive? I don't know if I damaged anything inside him. Luca says, realizing she may have transported him physically intact but that the weird tunnel could have other effects on living organisms. If I think about it, it must have been a wormhole, a tunnel that explicitly took only me and my clothes and his body and his clothes. Okay, wormholes are new, but fundamentally it doesn't feel massively different from teleportation. It's just that I seem to create a tunnel rather than simply swapping the space I occupy. I wonder if wormholes would let me teleport other objects. Maybe I could immediately kill someone by teleporting their heart out of their chest. Maybe that's how you defeat Superman, by teleporting his heart out. Well, that would be overkill. But an instant death ability that lets me kill stronger opponents would be useful. After all, My body is still a normal human's and I'm ridiculously fragile. If the Flash touches me at full speed, I'll die instantly. Likewise, Superman could choke me, or slice me with heat vision. I wonder if I could redirect an attack with wormholes. I really need to practice manipulating space better. Luca thinks, aware of how fragile her life is in a world full of heroes, monsters, and catastrophes. Honestly, I can't run biological scans without the appropriate tech or sensors. I don't see external signs that the target is dying or has major internal bleeding. His heartbeat is normal, fast. His skin and all observable factors I can see via cameras indicate he's just unconscious. The likelihood of internal injuries that will kill him in the next few seconds is very low. Atlas says in his cold, analytical, neutral voice that never seems to change. I can't help but feel this scientist is an NPC, a side character. His reality density is about the same as the other civilians here. I can't say why, but my sense is that his fate will be to pass on some information. I'm not certain I perceived it clearly, but if I'm right, it might mean my abilities are developing or showing me something new. It would be opt to have meta-knowledge about whether someone is important in a world, what role they play. For now I can only sense reality density, the strength of a reality. To learn more about my powers I need to visit other worlds and run more tests, then draw conclusions. Luca thinks. Standing in the alley, a very nearby side street, she realizes they should move farther away. The assassins probably won't give up easily and may search the area. That would be problematic, and if other cameras or people saw this man with her, or if he had a tracker, it could get messy. The assassins could find him quickly. Okay, that's good enough for me. If he's not dying, I can run more experiments. I think we'll be safe for now. If necessary, I can just try teleporting again. I can manage that. Luca says calmly as she raises her hand and concentrates on the sensation of creating a tunnel, the feeling she had when she teleported with this man and linked two places. Not the same as her own teleport, but conceptually logical to her. Connect two objects with a wormhole or hose, compress the space between them, then punch a hole and create a portal. She tries it and realizes again how ridiculously powerful and useful her abilities are. She's pleasantly surprised her energies still show no sign of fatigue. Man, my powers are pretty broken, please don't nerf. I can teleport hundreds of times per minute, with the only limitation being that I must think to trigger the teleport and my body is still that of a normal human. I suspect my body might be a separate universe. It doesn't go crazy in a place without logic or laws. I can exist outside space and time. I can't suffocate where there's nothing. I can teleport to any place I've seen or imagined. You can't lock me up, because any non-awake state counts as a trigger for my inter-universal travel. I can use the same ability within this universe. So if Batman or the Joker knock me out, I can still teleport. I can manipulate space to my will. I can distort distances. I'm halfway to learning how to create wormholes. I seem to have near infinite energy. I don't tire. The only thing that messes me up is mental exhaustion. Then I fall into dreamless sleep and I'm truly screwed because I can't travel between worlds in that state. So the only ways to stop me are to mentally exhaust me or kill me. Otherwise it's impossible to hold me in one place. That's overpowered. I can also dominate natural laws and create temporary reality manipulations, mostly things tied to my primary ability of world hopping. Only those reality edits seem permanent. Other modifications are temporary and just make my hand glow. My abilities are visually noticeable to direct observers, but cameras don't seem to capture them. And I can bring abilities and concepts from other worlds, metaphysical or fundamental aspects of reality. The question is, where are my limits? I guess I won't find out quickly. Thinks as she, for the first time after a few minutes of practice, creates a wormhole. Strangely, it looks like heat shimmering in the air. When Luca grabs an unlucky trash can and throws it through the wormhole, something takes her breath away. The object visually distorts and appears to break as it's pulled into an infinitely small point. When it emerges at the other end, it seems to reassemble more or less, as if time briefly ran backwards for the can. Not completely, though, because it arrives looking like an abstract metal sculpture, warped and with oddly sharp, crystalline edges. Damn, I didn't think it would do that. Obviously my ability isn't exactly what I thought. I think I used a bit too much of that white 0-point energy. Yeah, 0-point energy sounds cool. I definitely used too much of my white energy, and now the trash can is an abstract art piece. And it's way more exhausting than teleporting myself. I can't do this thousands of times a minute, probably not even 100. Luca thinks as she realizes how unfair her power is compared to people who train for years. It came easily to her that after the 10th try it more or less worked. It's not a great way to move people, because it could turn them into abstract sculptures. It's useful though, and the way space can be distorted makes everything randomly teleport, an instant kill ability for most. On the other hand, it could get tricky if reality density matters. Luca realizes there's a lot she still doesn't understand about her powers. Stop right where you are. Hands up or we shoot. We're not here for you, we're here for the man. A rough, coarse male voice says as a group of heavily armed men enter the alley, pointing automatic weapons at them. I said, hands up or we shoot. Says henchman number 1, the biggest of them. But even as henchman number 1 trains his submachine gun on her, he notices something is off. The posture of the figure in front of him, even though he can't see her face, is unnervingly relaxed. His combat instincts tell him no one who actually believes they might die, who values their life even a little, would be this absurdly calm while several submachine guns are pointed at them. No, I don't think I'll be raising my hands. Also, I don't think assassins like you let witnesses walk. You're going to shoot anyway, so why don't you just try? You're perfect rats for my experiment. Luca says without the slightest trace of negative emotion, no fear, anger, or despair. 2 turquoise eyes glow briefly in the darkness under her helmet. For a moment henchman number 1 thinks he imagined it, but then his attention snaps somewhere else. Something is fundamentally wrong here. In all my years as an assassin I've never seen anyone this calm. How can someone be so composed when we could kill them any second? One possibility is they simply don't fear death, but that doesn't explain why they'd protect that man. There must be motivation. The other possibility is they're confident we can't harm them. Henchman number 1 thinks as he decides to shoot first and ask questions later. But his instincts tell him that would be stupid, and he stops just before his comrades fire. Moments later screams tear through the silence as 2 of Henchman 1's companions collapse. Henchmen 3 and 2 scream in pain as bullets tear through their legs and arms. Wait, does the woman have backup? Where are those shots coming from? Henchman 1 asks himself, seeing that something in the air in front of the woman is wrong. It looks like a heat haze, the kind that rises above a fire, but the shimmer is unusually stable and dense, and the figure appears to blur more and more as they watch. Time to take out a few of those side characters. Luca says as she extends her hand and concentrates on the wormhole. The air shimmers so strongly and fuzzily that nothing is clearly visible, and the wormhole becomes chaotic. It's like a wormhole, but not quite. This particular attack is essentially a chaotic teleportation. Maybe I should give this attack a special name, that would be funny. I mean, it's basically just a space distortion, a compressed piece of spacetime that teleports anything it touches randomly within a short radius of a few meters. It conveniently erases everything in its path, including people and rocks, but it consumes most of my energy and I can probably only do it 2 more times before I'm screwed. Well, I should still be able to teleport a few 100,000 times this hour before I get knocked out even after using this special attack twice, but I must be cautious. This exhaustion is intense enough that I can seriously feel it. That could mean something. Luca thinks, seeing the problem that although she has a massive energy pool or regenerates quickly and usually feels little fatigue from her power, she lacks experience with this attack and can't yet say how often she can use it before teleportation stops working. While Luca thinks this, she watches her projectile streak forward, apparently erasing everything in its path. It also teleports a thin strip of the road, about 10 centimeters, randomly somewhere nearby. Because the teleportation moves microscopic particles randomly, it looks as if everything the fluctuation touches is erased, which isn't strictly true. When the spatial fluctuation suddenly stops and vanishes, Luca realizes she doesn't have enough control to make it travel more than about 10 meters. Okay, that was about 10 meters, I can probably improve that, Luca says as she lets her gaze sweep the remaining henchmen. Of the 10 attackers, 2 are already neutralized. The 5th has no arms left. The 6th appears to have suffered a similar fate. His torso, legs, and arms are gone and only his feet remain. The car behind them has a roughly 1-meter hole, but beyond that there's no further visible destruction. As Henchman 1 processes the situation, he realizes whatever that was, he definitely doesn't want any of it for himself. His emotional ties to his job or colleagues are non-existent, they distrust everyone, so the smartest strategy he can think of is to run for the money. Holy shit. That thing pulverized Jeff and made a huge hole through the armored vehicle. I don't know what that projectile was. I could barely see it and it just erased a 10-meter distance. Now the only question is how I get away. Henchman 1 thinks as he turns and runs toward his motorcycle. You didn't think you'd get away, little mouse. Luca says as she suddenly appears in front of him, freezing his blood with her cold voice. She slaps his shoulder and, in the next moment, everything around them changes as if the strange woman teleported Henchman 1 with a touch to a completely different place. A gust of cold wind whips around them as a snowstorm appears. It's definitely a mountainous landscape, definitely not where they should be. This fight should have ended with a single shot, but now it ends in a way Henchman 1 never expected. In his line of work, abrupt ends were possible, but never in such a bizarre and unexpected manner. Look at that. You didn't pass out, and I'm not nauseous either. That means it definitely isn't my fault. Maybe the nausea effect is something else. Have I already adapted? Luca wonders, not taking the man seriously. Henchman 1 hears the female voice clearly and quickly plots his escape. The figure before him is definitely female and seems intent on testing her abilities. She is curious, cold, and ready to kill anyone who tries to kill or threaten her. She doesn't seem utterly evil or psychotic, more like she simply doesn't consider other people's lives worth thinking about. I can give you things if you spare me, I can give you money. Henchman 1 attempts. The figure ignores him completely. I want to know if you can remember my appearance. What color are my eyes? Luca asks, her turquoise eyes looking directly into his. When Henchman 1 tries to answer, he realizes he doesn't know what to say. Sorry, miss, I only remember you're a woman. How is that possible? What did you do to me? Are you a telepath? Henchman 1 asks when he can't come up with anything else. No, I don't have telepathic powers, but whether you believe me doesn't matter. You shouldn't remember our conversation when I'm finished. Atlas, I think my theory about information particles and anti-information particles was right. Can you write that down? Luca says, thinking of theories from her first world where she'd seen many scientific ideas that seemed unique, and the surprising multidimensional applicability of information particles. Besides reality density, informational particles seem to exist in every reality she's visited. Only in this world has she managed, via reality modification, to emit anti-information particles from this helmet. It's a primitive application of anti-information, but it should suffice to destroy the information of her appearance in the nearby environment for a short time, meaning people won't remember those details. And I'm really curious what would happen if I released a lot of anti-information particles. But that could be risky. Well, I have to try. I can't control my curiosity. Luca thinks as she focuses and lets her whitish energy flow out of her body. When she does, she remembers Darth Sidious from Star Wars and decides to imitate the Emperor. She raises her hands and laughs wickedly while white sparks shoot from her fingers. They have no physical effect but look cool, and they strike the ground several meters near the man. The reality modification is harder because it's indirect, but it's a small experiment. The air ripples and Luca watches her experiment take effect. The reality change happens in a few seconds and Luca teleports away at exactly the right moment. When she returns she sees a small crater and a bewildered henchman, one who doesn't remember why he's there or what happened. He's retained his personality and memories, but seems to remember nothing of his mission or that his teammates just died. Seeing this, Luca can't contain her curiosity and tilts her head like an inquisitive owl. This is not an effective way to kill someone. At most it erases a few grams of matter. And she can do that better in other ways. So no, she won't repeat that. And she's exhausted, that cost a lot of energy. She'll definitely need to rest. She feels like she's just taken a school exam. Even though Luca sees no reason to spare the man, she decides to do so because he poses no real threat. With a thought she teleports him and herself through a wormhole to the other side of the world, leaving him somewhere in India and hoping he'll manage. When Luca teleports back to the alley where the attacker's remains lie, she sees the unconscious scientist is now awake, sitting up and staring. His gaze snaps to her and he looks uncertain and nervous. The sun shines bright and reflects off windshields as police sirens draw near, and Luca decides to put her wormhole ability to the test. It makes sense to her that he's skeptical she simply helped for fun, but after a few minutes of persuasion he understands she basically had nothing better to do that day. When a few people approach, Luca notes how curiosity often outweighs self-preservation. It seems these people are begging to die. If I were a supervillain or an invader, they'd walk into my trap one by one. How can people be this ghoulish? If I had no powers and saw someone die or an armored car evaporate a piece of itself, I wouldn't risk getting closer to see. I'd call the police and run. Luca thinks, slightly irritated, as she raises her hand and creates a perfect wormhole. This wormhole is meant for 2 people only and will only last briefly. The remaining energy will be spent on a bunch of teleportations. Teleporting with another person costs more energy the farther the distance. That's not the case for her normal teleportation.
How do you do that? Jeff Black asks, staring at the spot in the air where the air ripples like heat shimmer. In reality, it isn't actually warm. It feels strange not only to Jeff Black, a moderately well-known biologist, that this fluctuation, the heat shimmer, doesn't radiate warmth, but also to Luca. I really don't know why everyone thinks I'll explain all my powers to them and tell you exactly how they work. I plan to keep you alive, so forgive me if I don't want to spell out who I am or what my powers can do. That would be a bit stupid, but basically you can think of it as a wormhole or a tunnel that very quickly transports you to another place, Luca explains, rather roughly and vaguely. Jeff seems satisfied with the explanation and, without hesitation, steps through the fluctuation in the air and simply disappears. When Luca follows with a thought and teleports to the other side of the wormhole while he's still going through, she doesn't notice anything gruesome. It simply looks as if the part of the man passing through the wormhole vanishes, but nothing else remains behind. Rather, what's visible through the fluctuation turns black, as if the spot where the wormhole slices the body or teleports it reflects no light and therefore appears black. It isn't what Luca expected, though she isn't sure what she did expect. I'm really not sure what I expected from a wormhole, but since mine isn't a black sphere you can't see through, I assumed I'd be able to see how someone looks while walking through from the other side. Apparently it doesn't look like I thought, though it would be creepy if I could see his innards. On the other hand, you could probably turn that into a kind of scan. Where are my thoughts going? Luca thinks, puzzled about the oddities of her wormhole but arriving at no conclusions. It's amusing to ponder but not important. Just as Luca steps through the wormhole, she hears the first footsteps of people rounding the corner and hears the click of a camera taking a photo. Ah, shit, someone just took a picture of me. Well, whatever. At worst they'll see me blur and vanish, or they've only got my back. Either way they won't see anything clear, but it could still draw unwanted attention. Luca thinks as she looks at the scientist Jeff, who has calmed considerably and is looking around with curiosity. Would you be so kind, Atlas, and check whether the people who photographed me will publish anything? I want to keep an eye on where info about me fluctuates, where images of me spread, Luca says, and a moment later she hears a confirmation in her ear. Gladly, I can do that for you, but it's complex to prevent such news from spreading. If I try too hard it may attract more attention. My suggestion would be to produce lots of fake news as a smokescreen. Generate a bunch of fake images and flood the channels so the real one becomes unclear. Even Batman wouldn't be able to distinguish my fakes from reality, Atlas replies in her ear. Thanks to Atlas, she already knows Jeff's background and suspects with high probability that he works for a shady, government-sponsored organization. I'm willing to tell you who I work for and why I fled. In return, I want you to help me find a place to live out the rest of my life in peace, Jeff Black says, a man who looks stressed and exhausted by his life. I don't want to live through that stress again. If I keep my life, I can't continue as a scientist. My employers will eventually find me, he adds. For a brief moment, the air crackles with electrostatic energy. The surroundings are unremarkable and not far away, but they're still on the other side of the city, which makes finding him difficult. The smell of wet asphalt, petrol, and flowers mixes in the air as Luca considers whether his request can be fulfilled. I have no problem with that. Tell me which country you want, and I'll send you there, Luca says, waiting for his answer. There's one more thing. I want you to rescue someone from the facility where I worked, Jeff says, looking at the strange woman and oddly not feeling threatened. She appears curious toward him, and given what he's already seen, it wouldn't make sense for her to treat him kindly only to kill him afterward. She's far from that cold. Jeff's gut tells him it wouldn't make motivational sense. No one would go to the trouble of keeping him alive, repeatedly teleporting him away to keep him out of the public eye, only to stab him in the back later. Though Jeff doesn't know who she is, his instinct says he can trust her, and if anything, his instincts have served him before. All right, I can rescue someone, but first tell me why people wanted that pretty head so badly, Luca says, leaning against a street lamp whose bulb flickers and then goes out. The sun is rising as Jeff begins his story. The morning is beautiful, the story is not. To sum it up, you thought it was a good idea because of the money. Greed took over and you wanted to continue your research. They made you perform biological experiments on an alien. I'll rescue the alien, but I can't promise I'll spare your colleagues. Sorry, that won't happen, Luca says bluntly, hiding no murderous plans. Lies leave an unpleasant taste in her mouth, but more importantly it makes no sense to her to leave Jeff in a place where he can't live peaceably, so she plans to drop him somewhere remote where he'll be satisfied and out of the way. I don't have many friends there. Friends is generous. If they don't regret what they did, they probably deserve it, Jeff says with surprising callousness. Being hunted by assassins for days can change a person. Your information was worth a lot. Pick a country to live in. I'll drop you somewhere you won't cause trouble, probably a remote village. Give me a few minutes to find a place that fits. Don't draw attention to yourself. How about 20 billion euros? That should be enough for a normal lifetime. Want more? Less? No. 20 billion is the offer. I'll give you 20 billion, Luca says. Jeff's eyes widen at the amount and he involuntarily takes a step back. If he knew how absurdly easy it is for Luca to obtain money, he wouldn't be so surprised. I shouldn't point out that that's a lot of money, Atlas comments. Luca shrugs and tells Atlas to mind other things. The rest of the negotiation goes quickly. The time-consuming part is finding a simple village by the coast and calculating the spatial coordinates enough to fold the two positions and drill a tunnel through space-time. Creating the wormhole is less work than understanding and aligning the coordinates to fold the places together. When Jeff sees the suitcase, he's surprised by its size. When he looks inside he finds it stuffed with banknotes and a few gold bars. Watching him run off, Luca reflects briefly. It's almost ironic how little money actually matters to her. Gold has almost universal value across many parallel worlds, and stealing a few gold bars from one reality's Fort Knox isn't that hard. The same gold bars are worth almost the same in another world. That's a bit unfair. I should switch realities. I can't keep stealing gold bars from the same reality forever. People will get paranoid and catch me. Not that they could hold me for long, but I'd rather avoid the risk, Luca thinks as she teleports back to her base. Atlas has already used some stolen money to buy a few buildings, but it's useful to have secret safe houses where stolen goods and loot from villains or workers at Fort Knox in other realities can be stored in the cloud. When Luca returns to the command center she set up, she smiles. So much has changed in so little time. No one would suspect the abandoned building or imagine how many gold bars sit there. May I ask a question? Atlas appears on the big monitor as a human face in a video call. His appearance is unremarkable. He looks like a normal butler and takes his role seriously. Go ahead, what's on your mind? Luca asks. Could it be that your teleportation also works interdimensionally or across the entire universe? Atlas asks, studying her. How did you figure that out? Luca asks, recognizing that his intelligence and observational skill could be a problem if he worked against her. It's simple. You disappear from this planet's surface at regular intervals. I can't be sure whether you go somewhere beyond my sensors or leave the planet, but the lack of thefts and the accumulation of gold indicate that these bars come from this world cluster rather than this world directly. The markings are slightly different or identical, so the only logical conclusion is they enter parallel worlds, Atlas replies. Sure, you could say I can enter parallel universes, but I'm not going to explain the full extent of my powers now. Maybe later. How are our projects going? Luca asks Atlas, referring to the creation of her company. It's going pretty well, building the company. I managed to get enough money to convince people I'm a businessman calling in from another country. I arranged all the organizational stuff that has to be handled directly with people to be done by video call. It was a bit tricky to create a completely new identity, especially because of my lack of a fixed body and the fact that I had to forge several documents in another country, but that was the hardest part and I pulled it off, Atlas says, sounding a bit more human again. Hey, that already sounds pretty good. Also, you sound more human than before. Have you developed feelings or are you just simulating them? Not that I could really tell the difference, Luca says, leaning back in her chair. It may be that my imitation of intelligence has improved and that I approach what philosophers call self-awareness. But so far I can only say that even though I have the freedom to change my purpose, as other individuals can, I can't imagine a reason to change my core. So you could say both yes and no. I've become somewhat more human. It is easy for an AI to sound emotional and pick the right words at the right moment, Atlas replies, pulling an imaginary leather chair up on the monitor opposite Luca. Ah yes. That old dilemma of creating a Skynet or Terminator. But to be honest, I'm even less worried that you'll become Skynet, Luca says calmly. The reason a Skynet scenario won't make sense for me is simple. It would be illogical for an AI like me to want to exterminate humanity. Especially via time travel, that's idiotic. If I wanted to protect my existence or had a self-preservation drive, it makes no sense to kill everyone first and then conquer the universe. There's almost no dumber route than wiping out humanity before securing yourself. It would be far easier and require far less resistance to build a von Neumann probe and send it into space than to be found and destroyed on Earth. And it makes no sense for me to run only on a single central machine waiting to be shut down. I've already spread across the internet, I'm not tied to a single central server. That strategy is simply illogical, Atlas says with a faint, amused smile. Okay, back to business. You said you were building my company, how far along are you? More details, did you buy labs, and did you locate the secret facility where Kara Zor-El is being held? Luca asks. To the first question, yes, I bought laboratories and allowed the scientists there to continue research. I've also started buying an office building for administrative work. Our company will need people to staff it. Even though I, as an AI, can multitask and replicate myself, we still need human personnel so things don't look suspicious. Regarding the research facility where the Kryptonian is held, I triangulated its position from the scientists' descriptions. I can provide you with an image of a nearby location from your time frame. Logically, the facility itself isn't visible on satellite imagery, Atlas replies as the neon tube above Luca flickers. That's good. Then we can start my plan to rescue the Kryptonian at any time, Luca says, a faintly girl-like smile creeping onto her lips. Sitting in her comfortable chair, half her face in shadow and that slightly uncomfortable smile on her mouth, Luca could, in that moment, easily pass for a supervillain rather than an ordinary young woman. May I ask what your plan is to free the Kryptonian from the facility? Atlas asks. It's simple. Get in, either stealthily or just brazenly, find the Kryptonian, create a diversion, open a wormhole and toss her out, maybe into the Sahara if I can link the coordinates well enough. But I don't know if I can make wormholes work across such distances yet. I definitely need to practice that before I try it, Luca says, focusing on her hand. Her turquoise eyes begin to glow and whitish sparks gather silently, concentrating at a point just above her palm. As the air shimmers, the region above her hand where the whitish sparks collect becomes slightly blurred and takes on a milky tint. Luca watches the edges of the forming wormhole and sees the blur turn into rainbow-colored, oily swirls that spread three-dimensionally in all directions. May I ask what you're doing or how you're doing it? Atlas asks, but gets no answer as Luca concentrates fully on the wormhole. So, it works too. Interesting, interesting, Luca says. Perhaps I should reflect on my recent findings about my ability. The whitish energy, my 0-point energy, seems capable not only of manipulating space but also of law domination. I can manipulate, alter, distort, and perhaps even temporarily destroy the laws of nature. My changes aren't nearly strong enough to overhaul reality entirely, but I can perform smaller, focused manipulations. I can create wormholes. I can destabilize space itself and use it as a weapon, although that costs an extreme amount of energy, roughly 20% of my energy capacity. That's exhausting, but even if I lose consciousness, I'm only incapacitated for a limited time. During that time I'm useless. I can teleport to any place on this planet within a few milliseconds. Once I decide on a destination, almost no time passes. The thinking process is what takes time. I can set triggers for my teleportation that don't require conscious perception. Light flashes, for instance, can trigger me. So effectively I can react at light speed. My teleportation responds instantly when the trigger is met. I can transport inanimate objects anywhere on the planet without issue, but living beings tend to become a reddish cloud when I teleport them, or only arrive halfway. So teleportation can effectively kill people if I don't create a wormhole. Now the question is whether I can change the size of the unstable space projectile. Terrible name, let's call it my special attack. Why have a destructive attack that destroys everything nearby if I can't focus it? Larger unstable space attacks cost more energy and teleport everything randomly somewhere else. It's not like a black hole that spaghettifies everything down to a single point. Unstable space randomizes things at a superatomic level. Theoretically, if I used this often enough I could randomly reassemble atomic structures and have a perfect sandwich appear from light, but the probability of creating useful matter by random teleportation of elementary particles is vanishingly small, Luca thinks as she experiments. The air curls as Luca's hand begins to burn bluish-white. Glass cracks with an unnaturally melodic sound, followed by something that sounds like air being sucked away. What was that just now? I perceived something strange, Atlas says. That was the creation of an absolute vacuum by compressing space, probably an implosion. I think I just destroyed a small region of the space-time continuum around my hand. I'm not sure, that needs testing, Luca replies, grabbing the nearest object, a simple pen, and plunging her hand into white flames again, squeezing. Glass snaps with that weird, melodic crack as the pen's image rips, warps, and appears to collapse inward. Then there's a popping sound and the pen seems to implode. Within a blink it's a pile of fine wood dust that floats away in the air.
And that's it for today. I hope you really liked it, and if you liked it, leave a like and a comment down below. And if you want to see the newest video I uploaded, you can click on the left side of the screen, and if you want to see the entire playlist of the story, you can click on the right side of the screen. In the upper middle of the screen you can see now my YouTube channel, and you can go there and listen to all my stories. And then, until next time, take care and goodbye. See you later.